Okay, there's no real timeline on this last one. Well, it's not the last one, we'll actually do one once you get into Spain, but this is going to be, some people this will take weeks to do, some people get excited and take the last couple of months to organise it. That's our vineyards of Limata, by the way. You've got to prepare for going to a new country. The first thing you need, make sure you got all the right documents. If you're going to go residencia, resident in Spain, you're going to need a set of documents, which is a complete topic on its own. So we'll just look up what's required for residencia. The reason I say that is because I could do an entire video on that. The other thing is you're going to need to get an NIE. An NIE number basically allows you to buy a car, insure a car, pay tax. It's basically a tax number, and to get that you will need the details of your property. This is why you need, before you come to Spain, make sure you've got your bank account and it's accessible, because the first thing you want to do is make sure that you've got access to that, because linking your UK bank to a Spanish account will get you active even without the NIE number, because they'll say, well, bring your NIE down once you've got it. But if you haven't got a UK address, it makes it very difficult to open a bank account. So make sure you've got a bank account set up. If you're bringing your car on UK plates, check how much it will cost to change them to Spanish plates, because as soon as you become a resident or you've been here over 6 months, you're supposed to transfer the plates over. It's often cheaper to replace the car than change the plates. Sounds bizarre, but it's reality. There's a lot of what I'll call wrecks in the UK, which are a bit like Rolls Royces in comparison to some of the vehicles you'll see driving around in Spain, but there's nothing you can do about that, because I know the old Vauxhall Astra I was driving around when we first got here to change its plates. Wait for it, the car only cost me £400. Sorry, no, it was 300, I think. I think the other 100 was the road tax. 800 euros to change the plates on it. Now, in all honesty, after being here and having the problems with the Volkswagen van, I should have changed the bloody plates, because the Vauxhall was actually more reliable. It'd been owned by the same couple since new, but in the end I had to get rid of it because I couldn't justify at the time changing the plates, but I should have done. We live and learn. Purely from the point of that 800 euros, I would have got back in no time, because after I got it, I got the Volkswagen van, the drive shaft went, and that cost me just over 800 euros. So yeah, bear that in mind with the vehicle. You can have it here for 6 months, but you could actually drive it back to the UK and bring it back every 6 months if you want, but you're not supposed to be driving on British plates if you're a resident. Just something to be aware of. I'm not saying how you'd get around that rule, but many people do. So you got your car sorted. Make sure it's got breakdown cover, because here in Spain you got to have breakdown cover on your insurance. So even if you've got European driving insurance, you need to make sure it's covered with roadside recovery. It also needs to have the kit for Spain. When I say kit, it's like a bulb kit. You need fluorescent jackets, triangle, all that sort of stuff. Read up on it, because when I made this video and you will look at this in 2 years' time, something may have changed. So I'm not actually going to list everything down, because if it changes, you've gone and looked at it. Fines on the roads could be quite heavy, so just bear that in mind. What else have we got? So you got you know where you're going. If you're buying, make sure that, well, in the last few weeks you already know where the property is. Make sure there's no hidden taxes of any kind. One of the problems you get is, like, say I bought an apartment here for 28,000 euros, which some of them were going for, and they spiked up. Say, for example, the government says that apartment's worth €50,000, right? Now, you would have paid your 10% at 2,800 if you'd bought it for 28,000, but the government doesn't want that. It wants the 5,000 because that's what they value that property at. So those sort of things, be aware of, because there's been many an expat been asked to cough up with thousands of euros for a bargain purchase, purely because there's extra tax, because it's based on what the government value the property at, not for the price it's for sale at. Just something to be aware of. Make sure if you're bringing kids, there's schools nearby and they're already on the list to get in there. There is a whole list of requirements for that, and I recommend setting everything up before it becomes a new school term so that you have enough time to get in there for the enrolment, because you have to do a lot of running around. You're not going to be eligible for a lot of the documents yet because you haven't filed for them yet. So leave plenty of time for that, because your kids may end up at home for the next few months while you sort your paperwork out, because they can't go to school until it is done. That's just one of the things we're living in Spain. It's not a biggie, but it's something to be aware of. Understand that things do not happen overnight here. Don't assume that because you've got everything and you're going to get your padron, your residency, doing this, doing that, because things change here. There's quite often that we've gone in and said, right, we'll go and do this. They've asked for this, and then we've gone in to the government office and they'll say, well, that changed last month. Even though they'd actually set the requirements and told us exactly what they wanted, it's now been changed. So bear that in mind. This is why some people have talked about medical cards on some of the forums and stuff, because they've gone to use them and they've had them revoked because the rules have changed. And sometimes that's because they don't actually know who's here and who isn't. And some of it's because the rules have changed on who's actually eligible for a medical card. There's these SIP cards, which is the Spanish health cards. But if you've got your EHIC cards, which is another important point, don't worry about it, because your EHIC cards will cover you for your first 3 months anyway. That's your European health insurance card that you'll get in the UK. That will cover you for your first few months. There is also, I think it's the S1, which if you're still working in the UK or paid so much, there is some cover for the first 2 years, but you have to look into that, because I spent months trying to sort that with the tax office, and in the end it was not worth my time, because I still work with British companies. They were sort of saying, well, if you're in the UK so many days of the week and then you're in Spain the other, you've got to tell us when you're there and when you... What are you talking about, you know? Because I'd have to sit and work out where I was the most, and it all depends on the work at the time. So nearly impossible to do, but that was part of the requirements with the S1. So those sort of bureaucracy things are going to take up some of your time when you first move to Spain. So you've got to factor that in. Don't assume you're going to get a job straight away, because until you get your NIE number, you're going to struggle to get any work, because they can't actually pay you. They need your NIE to pay your tax. So until you get that, it ain't going to happen. A lot of people are autonomo in Spain, which is self-employed. So you'd have to set that up, which means you have to not only have your NIE, but register with the Social Security Office as well. It doesn't happen overnight. And that's what I'm saying, this is stuff you start preparing for. One of the things we have is a big folder with multiple copies of passports and everything else, so that we can go into any office and we've got a ream of paper already printed for them and go, well, there's that one, that one, that one, that one. Because we've been through it so many times now, we just prepare everything in advance. But that's what you've got to consider. It's not straightforward. It looks straightforward, and it is straightforward when you know exactly what they want, but a lot of the time you won't know what they want until you've been there. But that's just the way it is. can't knock it, it's just the way the system is. And I've met a few Spanish people, as soon as you mention you're waiting on something, they just go, because they know exactly what you're talking about, because they have the same problems. Yeah, so you got your car sorted, your paperwork sorted. Have a look at your driving license. Have a look at your passport, your EHIC card, and make sure they're all in date and not going to run out in the next 6 months. The last thing you need to be doing is going through the stages of immigration or something and have to change your passport or something else. So make sure all that stuff's up to date. And then you've got that sorted, where you're going to live. If you can get it ahead, get your contract for your rental or the purchase of the house, the paperwork for that, because then you can start processing things as soon as you arrive. And I'll leave it at that for now. I think that's enough to divulge for today. And the next one we'll do is actually when you first arrive in Spain. Thanks for watching.